is an Odyssey original.
This is War in Ukraine Daily. I'm Charles Feldman.
And I'm Mike Simpson from the KNX Odyssey Studios in Los Angeles. An estimated 3 million Ukrainians have been on the move, leaving their homes, their cities, to avoid getting caught in the middle of the invasion. With that number of refugees growing by the day, we've been bringing you the stories of Ukraine's civilians trying to escape the war. Another one today, a very personal story. We'll also get you up to date on a weekend of activity where the president seemingly called for regime change in Russia, and the Russian military struck closer yet to a NATO territory, a missile strike just a few miles away from the Polish border.
So as Mike said, we've been telling you the stories of regular people from Ukraine struggling to survive and make sense of this war. Ruslan is originally from Donetsk in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. He left in 2014 as war with Russian-backed separatists started. He says he literally got the last ticket on the last train out. Ruslan then went to Kyiv, where he recently left, in order to head to a safer area, and he is with us now. Leaving your original home in the eastern part of Ukraine about 8 years ago at this point, what has your personal journey been like for you and your family?
Well, I can definitely tell that it probably was one of the harsher experiences in my life, because not only I had to leave my hometown where I had all my friends, all my family connections, pretty much everything I knew in life up to this point. I had to switch it all for a completely new environment. And it's not a friendly environment in that. I mean, I faced plenty of discrimination by my fellow Ukrainians, unfortunately, and I can blame them for that, because people from my region were known for being, well, crooks, for scamming people. There were a lot of apartment scams happening at that time. And it was even hard to find a new accommodation for myself for quite some time.
And then now you've had to do it all again, right? So 2014, when that started, and then moving to Kyiv, and then now things aren't safe there, or so you had to go again. What are you trying to do now? What's kind of the game plan as we watch what's happening?
Well, in a very terrible way that I honestly would not wish to anybody to experience, especially my fellow citizens. That recent escalation of the war with Russia actually brought the nation together. So no longer am I viewed as some sort of a third-class citizen, but rather people are actually sympathetic, because all of a sudden they realized what I had to go through alongside with 2 million of Ukrainians that also lost their homes back in the day. And so now I'm just doing my best, out of the bad situation that the whole country is in, by volunteering, by using my language knowledge to get the word out there, by translating content, by connecting the volunteer groups with charitable organizations abroad to help get the supplies, humanitarian aid, the expertise, and the word out.
What do you think of the suggestion, which I'm sure you know is out there, that one way, perhaps, that this war will come to an end is with the Donbas region, where you're from, right? Would be recognized by the Ukrainian government as a separate sovereign area, a mostly Russian-speaking area, and that might end this conflict if Russia were to agree to that. What do you think about that?
Well, having studied the history of the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire before, and being from the actual region that historically has been known to have more ethnic Russians than probably any other region of Ukraine, I can tell you that Russia is not going to stop if they somehow get Donbass from Ukraine, which I sure hope they won't, because A, our president, thankfully, is never going to allow that, and B, those Ukrainians that still reside in the Ukrainian-controlled part of Donbass, they will also not go for the region to be seceded to Russia. So the problem with Donbass is that it's kind of like a chicken bone that's stuck in the throat of Russia at the moment, and they will either break it by taking it into themselves, becoming part of the Russian Federation, which is not going to end well for Russia as a country, or they'll have to spit it out, and Donbass will be back under Ukrainian control.
Do you think it's easy for people on the outside to forget when they think about the war in Ukraine? They say, "Oh, it's been going on for a month now." Well, no, it's been going on for 8 years, right? 2014 is when you left. So people who are just now realizing because Russia is, doing what they're doing, but there's been fighting for years and years and years affecting people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sad to see that that's what it takes to kind of cut through the noise of the modern environment that we all live in, to kind of have the suffering and destruction and death to be elevated to such a level where it no longer can be ignored by the, Western or Eastern civilizations at that. But, it is what it is. And as far as I can tell, all things considered, Ukrainians are putting up hell of a fight. And I do hope that we'll continue getting the support of our Western allies. And we are on our land. We're protecting our homes, our families, and Russian fascists are going to get what they deserve.
Tell us a little bit about your family. What is it like, and are they all with you, or are some still in the Donbas region or elsewhere?
Well, when I left Donetsk, unfortunately, my mom at the time also left to another part of the country, and my dad was left all alone, and he died because I guess it was some sort of a heart issue or a combination of a heart issue and a mental issue. So I lost my father back then, and my mom came back, I think, a couple months afterwards, and she has been living there ever since. But actually, recently, with the recent announcements by the so-called leaders of the separatists in the Lugansk region, which is close to Donetsk, them intending to do some sort of a fake referendum, just like they did in Crimea back in the day, and connect themselves to Russia, she's actually planning to move out and situate herself somewhere in Europe.
And is she free to do that? Well, what's kind of daily life like in those regions? Because again, if we do an outside looking in perspective, I think a lot of people think, okay, those places, maybe they do want to leave or there's fighting, but there's a group of people that definitely wants to go. But you're saying, no, that's not how it is. This is, again, Russia trying to take control of a place and install their own people.
That's unfortunately exactly what's happening, because even in Crimea, for example, and I'm not sure if this is being even communicated to the Western media right now, Russians are preventing those who reside in Crimea, whether those are the people that lived there before 2014 in the annexation or the ones that moved after, they're preventing them from moving out because people are actually panicking and they're selling their homes at a superior discount for like 10, 20, $30,000. You can get a frontline apartment with a seaside view and everything. And in Donetsk, they were so desperate to get at least some sort of an economy going on that they recently, all of a sudden, after 4 years of pretty much converting the whole economy into rubles, they are allowing hryvnias, Ukrainian currency, to be used alongside the rubles. That just shows how bad the situation is. And with everything that's happening in Russia itself, I don't see how things can improve. They can only go, further downhill from there.
Ruslan, how old are you, and do you have kids?
No, I don't, and I'm actually going to be 31 this April.
Okay. And what do you do for a living? You mentioned that you're doing a lot of translating. Is that your profession?
Not exactly. It's just something that I find my language skills to have the most impact right now, just because, there's a huge communication gap between Ukrainian and Russian language and what's being consumed in the West, mostly in English. I guess my main occupation right now would be that of a copywriter. And then as a part-time thing that obviously is not getting paid because it's a volunteer activity, I'm helping to connect Ukrainian charitable and nonprofit organizations that are doing things on the ground with Western charitable organizations that are looking to do some actual impact, unlike, those larger ones like Red Cross.
Inspiring to see so many people trying to do something, especially those who are staying. We talk about how many refugees there are, and for good reason. People need to go to where they need to be safe, but so many people have stayed, and some have told us that the express reason is just to be there so they can do something. So they're someone still in the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that gives me great hope and belief that, Russians are gonna break their teeth against Ukraine. Is that the males that could have left the country, like I could have left actually in the first day, but I decided to stay because I realized that, I lost my home once and I'm not going to allow those dogs to steal my home again from me. And, Ukrainian men right now are literally fighting for their lives, for their houses, for everything they hold dear. And I don't think there's a force of nature out there in this world that can break this resistance.
Ruslan, do you have or did you have ethnic Russian friends in either the Donbas region or perhaps even in Russia? Many Ukrainians, of course, do, as you know.
Well, somehow I've been fortunate enough, and I I say this not with a easy heart, to have friends that quickly realized, just as I did, that having a Russian background, we kind of need to work twice as hard to prove to ourselves, first and foremost, that we're not like them, we're better than them, and we're more decent human beings. And then obviously having to go through the hardship of reintegrating ourselves into the Ukrainian society. And sadly, I do have friends that went to serve in the military to defend the Ukrainian side of Donbass, and they perished in the line of duty. And I have tremendous amount of respect for them. And every year, I I go to visit their graveyards, and I can say that they probably were twice as Ukrainian as most people give them credit for.
Yeah, what does it say about your friends that despite, facing the adversity of coming back in, they still signed up to fight for the country that was discriminating against them in some aspects? That's amazing.
Yeah, it truly is, and they will be forever remembered as heroes of Ukraine who put their lives in exchange for the freedom of our country.
How do you think this is going to all end?
Well, unfortunately, the price for freedom is always paid in the blood and lives of those who are fighting for it. And for 30 years of independence, Ukraine has been lucky enough not to shed that much blood to truly get the freedom and democracy that we're trying to establish in the country. And now with this full-blown war happening and Russia acting as a clear, aggressive fascist state that doesn't perceive Ukraine or Ukrainian culture as something that can exist outside of the Russian sphere of influence, this is the chance of a nation to actually forge itself and finally become of age in a way. It's a crucible by fire of sorts.
Do you think this actually will end up breaking through to the Russian people who either don't believe what's happening is happening or aren't shown what's actually happening?
Well, in World War II, eventually things were brought through to the citizens of Nazi Germany, and with the way that the media operates nowadays, with many more sources of information readily available, regardless of where you are on the planet Earth. And even with the Russian state taking such drastic and desperate measures as to block and prohibit, under the threat of 15 years of imprisonment, the Russian media from publishing and distributing the interview of our president with Russian journalists, that just speaks volumes. Their outdated KGB approaches clearly no longer work in the modern world, and I think it's only a matter of time unless until the truth actually comes out.
And you mentioned the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. Are you surprised by the path that he ended up through no choice of his own, really, going, from a basically a television comedian to an elected official, but now somebody who is admired in much of the at least Western world?
With his background being of an actor and a showman, I can definitely tell that, funnily enough, he actually did make the choice of becoming the leader of the nation right now, when nation needed such a leader the most, because probably he realized that it's truly the chance that he gets. It's a lottery ticket of sorts to truly write his legacy and become the symbol that the nation needed, or just be swiped away. And nobody's ever going to remember him if he were not to stand up to this tremendous responsibility. And I gotta say that I never was a supporter of his. I didn't vote for him, and this trial clearly shows that, well, he does have balls. And whatever he may have done as a politician before that, I definitely got to give him prompts for how he stands up to the challenge right now.
And those of us in the West, what do you want people to know?
I think the main message should be that, Ukraine is not part of Russia. Ukrainian is not like Russian language. we do have our distinct culture. We are a distinct, separate nation. And right now, we unfortunately have to carry the burden of responsibility and freedom and democracy for the Western world, fighting against the oppressive, fascist, and frankly, just genocidal Russian regime. And as long as we have the support of our allies, and as long as the Western world sees Russia for what it is and does not turn down the pressure in terms of sanctions and all the financial consequences of this absolutely ludicrous war effort of Putin and his KGB cronies, I think Ukraine will prevail. So, guys, don't forget us. We're here fighting the democracy fight for the whole planet right now.
Ruslan, thank you so much for talking to us. Originally from Donetsk in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine, left there in 2014, went to Kyiv. Stay safe. We wish you the best, and we hope that you and your mom can get closer, that she gets out of there as well and closer to you. Thanks again for speaking with us. The war is now entering its fifth week. Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine set to resume tomorrow. President Zelensky says his country would consider declaring itself a neutral party, giving up hopes of a NATO membership in exchange for peace with Russia.
It can't come soon enough for people in the country. Shortly after President Biden said Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power, Russian rockets hit the outskirts of the western city of Lviv over the weekend, and that is where journalist Phil Ittner is right now. Phil, when we last talked about a week ago, the Russian military first started to launch missiles toward western Ukraine. Have those strikes gotten closer to Lviv itself?
Well, yeah. I mean, over the weekend, we got hit directly in the center of town. There was a fuel depot that got struck by what appeared to be a cruise missile, and then there was a second strike that was on the outskirts of town. Most of the strikes that have been happening in the western part of the country have been locations that are a little bit farther afield than the city proper. But this strike on Saturday was right in the middle of town, and there was a huge black plume of smoke drifting over the city, and people, for the first time, had the war come right to their doorstep. So there remained a sense of resolve here, but it was just a little too close for comfort.
What is the read on how things are going overall? Because there was a sense, again, this was late last week, that, oh, look, the Russians are kind of falling back. Ukrainians in some areas are retaking towns. They've got them on the run. But then others were saying, well, no, this is in the Russian playbook. If you don't get exactly what you want, you do fall back a little bit, you dig in, and then you just start shelling and shelling and shelling to break everybody's resolve.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening around the capital of Kyiv is that those battle lines are being, there's an ebb and a flow going on there. The Ukrainians have been quite successful in some counteroffensives, but the Russians have also regained some territory as well. So those battle lines are pretty fluid at the moment, although we do hear from Moscow and the military leaders in the Russian armed forces as saying that their intention actually is now not so much some of these other cities around the country, or to try and split the country, or to try and denazify the country. They've gone down from a list of about 7 objectives that they said they had at the beginning, and they're now saying that really what they want to do is liberate those eastern separatist areas in the east of the country, and then presumably build that land bridge, a corridor that would connect them to the peninsula of Crimea, where they have the Black Sea Fleet. Of course, the major the thorn in the side of doing that, though, is the city of Mariupol, which, while it has had an awful lot of civilians evacuated from it, there's still a lot of civilians there, and most notably, there are still three battle groups in there that are vowing to stay and fight as long as they can.
So, as you know, the Ukrainians are saying, Ukrainian government, I believe, is saying that they believe the goal of the Russians now would be to create a situation analogous to North and South Korea by dividing the country. But if they were to do that, wouldn't it deprive what would then be, I guess, the independent Ukrainian government and country access to very vital areas of the country needed for its own economic survival?
It would indeed, and that's a real serious risk here. And the idea is that they would split it along the Dnieper River, which runs pretty much right in the middle of the country and ends down near the port city of Odessa. And that's where the threat would be for the Ukrainians. If the Russians are able to take Odessa, and I have to hasten to add that that's a big if. That's a fortified city, and the Ukrainians are going to fight tooth and nail for it. But if they are able to take that port city, they will, in effect, have taken the entire Ukrainian seaboard. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Odessa to a little breakaway republic where Russia already has a base in the Eastern European country of Moldova. So they would, in effect, cut off the Ukrainians from the sea, and they would not be able to export using those sea lanes. So it would be a huge blow, and a rump Ukraine would be created. And presumably the idea for the Russians would be to just let it rot on the vine.
Did the NATO meeting, did the president's comments have any big ripple effects there, or are we still in this position where it's like, look, send us weapons. You call whatever Putin you want to call him, but we need stuff here and we need it now.
Yeah, they're still calling. That's their primary request right now. I mean, of course, they were happy to hear some of the words that were coming out of President Biden's visit to Poland, but they have been saying that Putin is a thug and a war criminal for quite some time now. So that only just reinforced what they've already been saying. But they are saying that they are going through so much munitions that they are at a point where they're going to start running out of even just your basic artillery shells. And while they have been asking for anti-tank and anti-aircraft, it's getting to the point where they're burning through so much of their stockpiles that they're starting to ask for just bullets and artillery shells. So the Ukrainians have been really using up what they have, and they're getting to a point where they're going to start asking for not those smart weapons, not the high technology weapons, but just stockpiles of ordnance.
Phil Ittner there for us in Lviv. Phil, thanks. This is an Odyssey original. Find us and others on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher.